Sean Diddy Combs thought his last-minute letter to the White House would be his get-out-of-jail-free card. But he was wrong. For decades, the bad boy mogul operated like he was untouchable behind the gates of his mansions in Los Angeles and Miami. He built a kingdom on the back of Ciroc vodka and Grammy Awards, while a dark secret lurked in the shadows of his infamous freak-off parties. Today, that kingdom has completely crumbled. As of January 2026, the man once known as Puffy is sitting in a cell at the Federal Correctional Institution in Fort Dix, New Jersey. He is serving a sentence of 50 months after a high-stakes trial that gripped the nation in the summer of 2025. But while many people think the story ended with the judge's gavel, it actually got much weirder. Just days ago, President Donald Trump publicly confirmed that Diddy sent him a personal letter begging for a pardon. The president told the New York Times on January 9, 2026, that the request was officially off the table. This video will dive into how the richest man in hip-hop lost $1 billion and ended up begging for mercy from the very system he tried to outrun. We're going to answer 3 major questions. First, why did the jury find him guilty of prostitution charges but let him off on the massive sex trafficking counts? Second, what was the real financial motive that caused his corporate partners to abandon him before the handcuffs even came on? And finally, what was actually written in that secret letter to the president? We have mapped out the timelines and pulled the court transcripts to show you the reality behind the bad boy PR machine. Our research includes the analysis of veteran PR strategists and entertainment lawyers who say this is the biggest fall from grace in the history of the music business. We are going to show you the receipts, including the hotel footage that changed everything, and the corporate filings that prove Diddy was broke long before he was convicted. Before we get to the shocking details of the trial, we have to talk about the money, because the money is what really started the collapse. Most people think Diddy's legal troubles started with the raids in March of 2024, but the financial end started much earlier. According to the court filings from his battle with Diageo, the spirits giant that owned Ciroc and De Leon Tequila, Diddy was playing a very dangerous game. Per a report from the spirits business on June 28, 2023, Diageo claimed that while Diddy made nearly $1 billion from their partnership, he had only invested a total of $1,000 of his own money. They accused him of using the partnership to extract billions through what they called sham lawsuits. Diddy had accused the company of racism, claiming they limited his brands to urban neighborhoods. However, according to a veteran PR strategist interviewed by Variety on October 12, 2023, this move backfired. The strategist noted that Diddy was trying to use public pressure to force a settlement, but instead, he gave the company a legal reason to walk away. When the legal heat turned up in late 2023, Diageo officially severed ties. This was the beginning of the end for his liquidity. Without the massive cash flow from Ciroc, Diddy couldn't maintain the fleet of private jets and the army of security guards that kept his secrets safe. Per the Forbes analysis in July 2024, his net worth plummeted as Macy's and other major retailers dropped his Sean John clothing line, citing morality clauses in their contracts. The expectation was that he was too rich to fail, but the reality was that his wealth was tied to corporate contracts that he had already poisoned. The payout here is simple. Diddy tried to out-negotiate the biggest liquor company in the world, and he ended up losing the only thing that gave him power in Hollywood. This financial desperation is what led to the reckless behavior that finally caught the attention of the feds. Now, we have reached the 3-minute mark of this story, and this is where things get truly shocking. We have to talk about the actual trial and that desperate letter for a pardon. Imagine being a former billionaire reduced to writing letters from a low-security prison. According to the report from Corrections 1 on January 9, 2026, Diddy had been bragging to fellow inmates that he would be home by the spring. He believed his old connections in the world of high society and politics would save him. In his letter, he claimed he was a reborn man who no longer cared about fame or money. He reportedly told the president that his conviction was a political hit job designed to silence a black leader. but the reality was that the public evidence was too damaging for anyone to touch. According to the court records from July 2, 2025, the atmosphere in the Manhattan courtroom was electric as the verdict was read. Diddy stood there, clutching the hand of his lawyer, Garagos, as the foreperson read the decision. The jury announced he was not guilty of racketeering conspiracy and not guilty of sex trafficking by force or coercion. For a moment, it looked like Diddy had pulled off the legal miracle of the century. His defense team had argued that his lifestyle was simply a series of consensual, though toxic, relationships. They claimed the government was trying to criminalize a swinger lifestyle, and that the accusers were just looking for a payday. But then came the pivot. When the foreperson read the word guilty for 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, Diddy reportedly looked startled. Per the CBS News report on July 2, 2025, he sank to his knees in prayer once the jury left the room. Even though he dodged a life sentence, those 2 counts under the Mann Act were enough to send him away for years. The payout for the prosecution was smaller than they wanted, but it was enough to end his career. The most shocking part of the trial was the testimony from the people Diddy thought he controlled. According to the Associated Press on July 2, 2025, the most damning testimony came from male sex workers who described being drugged and coerced into the freak-off sessions. These were highly produced events that Diddy allegedly filmed for his own enjoyment. One witness described how Diddy would sit in a chair and watch for hours while IV drips were used to keep the participants from passing out. These details made it impossible for a pardon to even be considered because the public outcry would have been a political nightmare. But why did the feds suddenly care about events that happened years ago? It all goes back to the receipt that Diddy couldn't pay off. According to the CNN report from May 17, 2024, a 2016 hotel security video showed Diddy physically assaulting Cassie Vendura in a hallway. It was the receipt that broke the dam. For years, Diddy had denied the abuse and even settled a lawsuit with Cassie within 24 hours back in November 2023. At the time, the public thought the settlement meant the story was over, but per the legal analysis from an entertainment lawyer on NBC News on May 20, 2024, that video changed the statute of limitations in the eyes of the public and the prosecutors. It proved that Diddy had lied for years, and it gave every other victim the courage to come forward. The pattern of behavior that spanned 30 years was suddenly visible to everyone. The PR machine tried to claim it was an isolated incident, but the federal government used it to show a long-standing pattern of violence. This leads us to the reality that Diddy's lawyers couldn't hide. He wasn't just a party animal, he was a man who used his wealth to buy silence. But once the money from Diageo stopped flowing, the silence ended. The pressure didn't stop with the criminal conviction either, and this is point number 4. According to attorney Tony Busby in a press conference on February 14, 2025, more than 120 new victims had come forward. These lawsuits are still moving through the civil courts today in 2026, and they are seeking billions of dollars. Per the reports from the Busby law firm, one of the plaintiffs was allegedly only 15 years old at the time of their encounter with the mogul. This created a secondary front that Diddy's legal team couldn't contain. While his criminal lawyers managed to beat the racketeering charges, the sheer volume of civil claims meant that even if he got out of prison, he would likely be bankrupt. This is the real reason he was so desperate for a pardon. He needed the federal government to validate his claim that he was being unfairly targeted. But when the president laughed off the request on national television, it was the final nail in the coffin. Diddy is now facing a future where he is not only a convicted felon, but also a man with no assets left to defend himself. Per the sentencing documents from October 3, 2025, Judge Arun Subramanian was unmoved by Diddy's pleas for mercy. The prosecution had asked for 11 years, but the judge settled for 50 months. The judge cited Diddy's disregard for the rule of law as a major factor. Even after the initial raids on his homes in March 2024, Diddy was involved in a physical altercation that the court used as proof of his violent nature. This is a man who was used to getting his way through intimidation or checks, but neither worked in a federal courtroom. The evidence presented during the trial included testimony from over 30 witnesses who all described a similar atmosphere of fear. According to the New York Times on July 2, 2025, the jury spent 4 days deliberating because they were torn between Diddy the celebrity and Diddy the alleged predator. In the end, they chose to convict him on the counts that had the most physical evidence. While the prosecution didn't get the sex trafficking win they wanted, they secured a conviction that effectively ended the bad boy era forever. So, what is the state of the bad boy empire today in 2026? It is essentially a ghost town. According to industry reports from January 2026, the catalog for bad boy records is being shopped around to pay for mounting legal fees and settlements.
The celebrities who used to frequent his white parties have completely distanced themselves. Names that were once whispered in connection to the freak-offs have stayed silent, hoping the public forgets. We have seen reports of major stars scrubbing their social media of any photos with Diddy going back 20 years. The fear in Hollywood is palpable because everyone knows there are hundreds of hours of footage from those parties that the feds still have in their possession. The expectation was that the trial would name every big star in the industry, but the reality was that the feds kept the focus on Diddy to ensure a conviction. However, the civil trials in 2026 are expected to be much more revealing. Tony Busby has already hinted that several high-profile names will be added as defendants in the coming months. To summarize the situation, Diddy's fall wasn't just about one trial or one video. It was the collapse of a carefully constructed facade that required millions of dollars to maintain. Once the corporate partnerships ended and the cash flow dried up, the protection Diddy enjoyed for 30 years vanished. He tried to play the political card with a letter to the White House, but he forgot that in 2026, his name is no longer an asset, it is a liability. The final takeaway from this entire saga is that power is a fragile thing. Diddy spent 3 decades building a persona of the ultimate boss, only to have it dismantled by a single hotel security camera and a determined group of victims who refused to stay quiet. He went from the top of the charts to writing letters to the president from a prison library. The letter to the president was a desperate final move by a man who couldn't accept that his reign was over. He is no longer the king of New York, he is just inmate number 374522. If you want to see the full list of who else was allegedly at those parties and how the rest of the industry is reacting, you need to check out our Fresh Celebrity Tea playlist. It is the only place where we track every update, every new receipt, and every hidden tape in this ongoing collapse. The story of the bad boy era isn't just about one man. It is about a whole system that is finally being exposed. We are already looking into the next round of lawsuits that are set to drop next week, and you do not want to miss who is being named next. Make sure you are subscribed because we are following the civil trials closely, and there are a lot more names about to come out. The industry is shaking, and we have the receipts to show you why.